Hello and welcome everybody to today's session, the OAPEN EU project, Insights from EU-funded authors. My name is Silke Davison and I'm Community Manager at the OAPEN Foundation, a global open infrastructure dedicated to peer-reviewed open access books and advancing research for the public good. I'm joined by my colleagues Graham Stone, the Head of International Projects, and Laura Bandura Morgan, our Funder Relations Manager. And I'm also one of the 3 coordinators of the OABN, the Open Access Books Network, the host of today's webinar, and I'll talk about them a little bit more in a moment. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes, so please move to the next slide. Yes, so if it's not obvious, please stay muted unless you're speaking. If you have questions, please pop them into the chat and raise your hand. There will be time for questions towards the end of the webinar, so we can spend some time there. This event is being recorded, and the recording and slides will be shared after the event via the OABN. On our YouTube channel and through our mailing list. Next slide, please. So the Open Access Books Network is a community for people to learn more about open access books and open access book publishing. We try to bring together different stakeholder groups by hosting free webinars like this one. We publish blog posts on various topics related to open access books. We have different resources on our website for funders, for publishers, for authors, and for librarians. And we also have a discussion group on Knowledge Commons for people to ask questions and raise discussion topics about open access books and open access book publishing. So you can find out more about the OABN on our website. You can join our mailing list, and you can also follow us on Blue Sky, and there are various ways to get in touch. Next slide, please. Just to note, another upcoming event we have on Monday, which is how to make your open access books more accessible and why this matters. So that will be on Monday, the 27th of April at 3 BST, 4 CEST, and 10 Eastern Daylight Time. So you're welcome to join that as well. Next slide, please. So just to go over today's agenda. We will, after this introduction, my colleagues Graham and Laura will introduce the OAPEN EU project and also give a demonstration of the deposit form. And then we will hear from 3 great speakers who I'm going to introduce now, and then they will be presenting after Graham and Laura have. So the first speaker is Carlin Mackenzie. Carlin is a web developer at CERN working on Zenodo. After the end of his contract, he will pursue a postgraduate diploma in education at the University of Glasgow, which will qualify him to become a secondary school computing teacher in Scotland, his home country. Outside of professional activities, he is a Wikipedia editor and is attending Wikimania, the global Wikipedia conference in Paris this July. Jochen Hung is Associate Professor of Cultural History at Utrecht University. Prior to working at Utrecht, he was an Assistant Professor Wissenschaftliche Mitarbeiter, I hope I didn't screw that up too much, at Humboldt University in Berlin. He received his PhD in 2013 from the University of London's School of Advanced Study. Jochen Hung's research focuses on the relationship between media, culture, and society in modern history. His book, A Moderate Modernity, The Newspaper Tempo and the Collapse of the Weimar Republic, 1928 to 1933, published by University of Michigan Press in 2023, covers the changes of German media discourses on gender, consumption, and democracy during the rise of the Nazis. He is currently working on a new project investigating the entanglement of German reunification and the rise of the internet in the 1990s. And last but not least, Dr. Imre Keserü is an Associate Professor of Urban Mobility and Deputy Director at the Mobilise Mobility and Logistics Research Group at the Vrije Universiteit Brussel, VUB, part of the House of Sustainable Transitions. His main research themes include the participatory evaluation of urban mobility inventions, assessment of socio-economic impacts of smart urban mobility, assessment of transport equity, developing strategies for inclusive digital mobility and transport foresight. He is the editor of the recently published open access books, Strengthening European Mobility Policy, Governance Recommendations from Innovative Interdisciplinary Collaborations, and Towards User-Centric Transport in Europe 3, Making Digital Mobility Inclusive and Accessible, both funded through Horizon Europe projects. So we have a lot to squeeze in, and let's get started. Graham, over to you.
Thanks very much, Silke, and I'm glad you had to do the pronunciations and not me, because I'll certainly for the German bit show how bad my German is at the moment. So yes, thank you very much. It's down to me to give you a sort of bit of an opening about what our particular project, the OAPEN EU project, is about before I hand over to Laura for a short demo. Silke's already said a little bit about the OAPEN Library, but just a few words to put it into context as to why we're hosting this this European project. Basically, if I can move the slide on, and there we go. So basically, our mission is to connect libraries, publishers, researchers, and funders. And I won't read the mission out in full, but basically, the bit around open access books for the public good is absolutely our core mission. And as part of that, we've got 3 services that we run. So the OAPEN Library is one of them, the directory of open access books, and also the open access books toolkit. So we're going to concentrate on the OAPEN Library and how this project fits in with the OAPEN Library. We are 15 and a bit years old now. We had our 15th anniversary last year after we grew out of a European project. And as part of that, the OAPEN Library hosts over 40,000 books, which are all freely available on open access. And also of those books, we get 1.5 million counter downloads a month of those resources. So it's a very heavily used resource. And I should also say, because Carlin's on the webinar, we sit in CERN, so our servers sit within CERN, and we're very happy to be hosted by them as well. So that's a very brief background to the project, but essentially this is why we've been in discussions with the Commission about putting together a collection. So the collection is the OAPEN EU collection. And then I'll just go into a bit of it's basically down to me to give you the dry details of the project. So as I said, we're funded by the European Union. The official title is Strengthening the OAPEN Infrastructure in Support of EU Open Access Policy. But we're basically a project, we're a 2-year project. We started in May of last year, so we're almost exactly halfway through the project. And the main aim of the project is to develop and maintain a collection of the books funded by the European Commission through Horizon Europe, and also the other various funding avenues from the Commission. So the main objectives for the project, we want to support researchers who are authors of those Horizon Europe books. We want to make sure that we've got a robust infrastructure behind those peer-reviewed books, and that they're sat within the OAPEN Library, and then therefore discoverable, which is why I mentioned CERN and why I mentioned our downloads that we're getting. And also part of this helps us then strengthen our infrastructure as well, and helps with our engagement. So that's the main reason for this. But I also thought I'd pop in something from the open access requirements from the EU. Essentially, as a Horizon Europe researcher, if you publish a book which acknowledges Horizon Europe research, there's a mandate for your book to be open access, and that's where we come in with this collection. So books and chapters have to be made immediately open access. They have to be put in a trusted repository, so OAPEN qualifies as that trusted repository. They have to be openly licensed, so CC BY is preferred but not essential, but a Creative Commons or similar license needs to be there. The funding needs to be acknowledged. The full source of EU funding, including things like the acronym, the grant number, and the funder program, need to be there. And also then the metadata needs to be attached to that. And that's essentially what we're doing by pulling that metadata across, pulling the books into the OAPEN library by a number of different ways. And basically what we've done is we have a number of collections within the OAPEN library, and the particular collection we're building is the European Union collection. It's built on a former project from the ERC funded publications, but now this includes everything to do with Horizon Europe. And this is just a screenshot of the front page of that collection, and it's a fully browsable collection. And as of yesterday, 878 books are within that collection, and we'll look to keep growing that collection with the help of researchers adding things, and Lara will come on to that in a second. But we hope to keep growing that collection as we go and have a really good resource of the Horizon Europe funded books. That's a very quick introduction to the project itself. And just to finally say, and we can pop these into the chat potentially at some point, but there's a link to the web pages. Lara, who has already been introduced by Silke, is the contact for this particular project, and I thought I'd be good and acknowledge the grant number, as I've just told everybody they have to, of the project, and that's the project at Cordis as well. So what I'll do now is I'll stop sharing and I'll hand over to Lara just to run through a little bit on the self-deposit part of this project. So Lara, over to you.
Thank you, Graham. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do, yeah.
Okay, so I've been told to have 5 minutes, so it means two things. I have to hurry up, or to fill in this form actually takes 5 minutes. So let me go through it. As Graham mentioned, we have on OAPEN website, we have the dedicated subpage to the European Union collection. And there is a place that you can find the link to that form. And this particular form was mainly dedicated to authors, to researchers, for them to submit their books. But they also, it's available for publishers or librarians that they can also submit the books on behalf of the authors, of the researchers, that the books were funded by any of the bodies from the European Union. So basically, it's a very straightforward, since it's dedicated mainly to the authors, to the researchers, so not very qualified in metadata. So it was very straightforward and hopefully simple to fill in, and doesn't require to collect any particular information. All is available for researchers or whoever is submitting right away. So just to go through and briefly through this. Basically, it could be in the book, or the chapters could be submitted. Unfortunately, for chapters, each chapter has to be submitted separately, not all together. But it's still the same simple form. So the first question and the first item is to distinguish if the publication type, and then to include the title, and that it's a mandatory field. Author, for some reason, I don't know why it's not indicated as mandatory, but it's obviously mandatory information to be provided. And if there are more than one author, there is an option to add them all together. If there is the ORCID number known, that's also a possibility to add the ORCID number in a certain way to be displayed on the website. And the same applies to the editor. If there is more than one editor, it can be easily added. And we go to the publisher name, which for some can be picked from our long list of publishers that we collaborate with. But if the publisher is not on the list, and there is also always option other, and then the place to fill in the name of the publisher. The crucial, and it's important to include the right way. And then if there are more than one ISBN, it should be separated by the semicolon. The publisher here, and that's the next item that we required. The language is also the list that to pick with, and the abstract. Abstract can be provided in the language of the original language of the book, but if the book is or the chapter is written in different than English language, then we can
I think we've lost Laura briefly. Laura, can you hear it? Can you hear it? Okay. Maybe we move on to the next part.
I can just go through a couple of these things. Obviously, Laura's screen sharing, so I can't scroll down. But just to carry on from what we were saying about the abstract, then it's a matter of putting in keywords, classification. There goes Laura, and the license as well. I mentioned that there has to be a CC license or equivalent, so that license has to go in there. As well. Then at the bottom of that screen, there is the very important option to add the full text of the book itself. So that should be possible because it's an open access book with a Creative Commons license. Then the full text can be added as a PDF there. There's a few other bits in that section, but basically that's the process you go through. You click send. And then, and I see James in the chat, but he's just said something I was about to. Yeah, you click send, and that comes through to us. We double check things, and because obviously we've got your contact details, we'll get back in touch if there's any clarifications we need to make. But as was just said in the chat there, for publishers who have an agreement already with the OAPEN Library, and I realized that as a researcher, you may not know that your publisher has an agreement with the OAPEN Library. So that's a conversation to have with your publisher. But for those publishers, as long as that metadata that we mentioned that is in the book, that the publisher will then send it through to us, and then we will make sure that that goes into the collection. So for those authors, for those researchers, of course, we don't cover everything, which is why we've got the two-step process. So either your publisher will do it, or if your publisher is not a member of the OAPEN Library, then the manual form has to be done. I think that's probably everything Laura was going to say. But I'm sure she'll rejoin once she cycles a bit faster and the internet powers up again. But Silke, shall I hand over to you from my fluffing there?
No, thank you very much. And I just dropped in a link to the form so you can see the rest of the fields that Laura didn't get to as well. And if you had a question about a specific field, we can come back to it at the end. But maybe now we can move on to hear from Carlin. Take it away.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Yes, I will share my screen. I'm Carlin, and I work at CERN on Zenodo. And so some of you might not be familiar with Zenodo. It might be something that you've not heard of. And so first of all, I need to explain what Zenodo is before we get to the topic of the presentation. So essentially, Zenodo is similar to what we just saw, except that we're for like all research outputs, and we're like focused on the long tail of science. So if you don't have a research institution or you don't have a subject specific repository, Zenodo is here as the sort of catch-all to help members of the public participate in open science. So this is the front page of Zenodo. And specifically today, we're here to talk about the EU Open Research Repository. And to first explain what exactly the EU Open Research Repository is in relation to Zenodo. Zenodo has communities, and these are curated collections by specific organizations or groups or topic areas. And the EU Open Research Repository is a community on Zenodo, funded by the EU, to collect all EU-funded research into one place. And so as you can see here, we have 154,000 records, 65 terabytes of data, and we represent 14,000 different grants from the EU. And so there's many ways to browse the EOR, either by subject, by project, or the funding program itself. And you can actually browse all of these if you follow through, and you'll see here you can find your specific subject area. And all of these will be, like all the records within these fields will be funded by the EU. But we're here to talk about books. And so the way that you find the books which are in the EU is in the EU Open Research Repository is you come to the records page, and you can then filter publication book or book chapter. So if I go to publication book, and it will load, and we have 1,000 books in the EOR. And you can see here that if we go to one, for example, we have this book about musicians and copyright. It's under CC by non-commercial, no derivatives. And if we check in the front matter, we see the funding statement, but we also see the license itself. And on Zenodo, we don't just have EU-funded books, just to mention. If you go to search generally, you can also, again, search for books and books chapters, and you'll see that we have 50,000 books on Zenodo. So around 2% of the books are actually funded by the EU, which is nice. And so I'm trying to think if there's anything else to cover before I talk about how to actually submit. But I think now is a good time. Oh, I guess one thing I can mention is you can also use the sorting to find like what are the most downloaded books. And you can also see the individual chapters as well. So yes. All right. So now to speak about how to submit. So we have a handy button up here, but it's not just one click. You have a couple options. So if you already have a project, like an EU-funded project, and you have like a lot of other deliverables that you want to index, we actually suggest that you create a community, and then this allows you to like curate your own collection and manage your own content. And so if you join with your EU project, which is the button here, you can then, oh my God, sorry, I forgot that I wasn't logged in. But you then get to a form where you can select your project, and you have some information filled in already. But I should definitely log in though, because otherwise I won't be able to see the deposit form. Okay, so if I then go to submit directly, so say you don't have a community, you're just wanting to disseminate your book as is. You go how to submit directly, and you get to our deposit form, which is which is a bit long, but it's manageable. Um, you upload your files. So here I've taken some free books from Project Gutenberg about images from Mars. Obviously, this is not EU-funded research, but it's it's a nice demonstrative files. On Zenodo, we provide a DOI for you, so you don't have to reserve one yourself. You can set your resource type to book. You can put in your Mars photography, and you can go add the authors. And then in terms of, as we just saw, you can also add your keywords and your languages. And we have information down here related to, yes, ISBN, the page numbers if it's a chapter, or the edition of the book. And then if you're, still work in progress, you can save this, you can come back to it later. But as you can see, we also have some feedback about, basic information, but also if you're submitting to the EU, we'll also, maybe I should submit it, but once you submit this, you'll actually get some feedback about test. Just for demonstration purposes, I will just show you that we'll actually see some metadata validation about the funding exactly here. And so this is, letting you know, like, you must have a EU grant for this work. And so this helps a little bit with curation if, you forget to enrich your metadata. And just one final thing to mention is that if you're having any problems with submitting, we have some nice help documentation, which, describes all the different fields that we have, how you should use them. And we just want to, make it known that we've already written quite a lot about how our platform works. So that it's the best place to consult. And yeah, I think that's everything. I hope I've made it clear what Zenodo is for, and essentially everyone who doesn't have a home already. And yeah, and I'll take questions at the very end with everyone else. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Colin. That's really interesting, and I think a great way to disseminate content in an additional way as well. More ways for people to discover open access research. Jochen, if you would like to take over now and share with us.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me? Yes, great. Hi. Yeah, first of all, I have to apologize. I'm sitting in a kind of semi-public place. I'm at the State Library in Berlin at the moment where I'm doing some research. Hopefully it's not too loud in the background. If that's the case, then maybe Silke can give me a sign. Yes, so as Silke introduced at the beginning, I'm Jochen. I'm working at Utrecht University as a historian. And a few years ago, 2019 to 2022, I was leading a project funded by the Erasmus Plus network as a framework, which was basically aimed at creating English language teach material on the bachelor level for basically us, Utrecht, and 8 other partners to create material that we could use in English language history education that is not written by basically American, British, or Canadian authors. That was the idea behind it. So the whole project started when we at Utrecht, the history department, established an English language BA history. And we very quickly realized that the teaching materials, so the textbooks on bachelor level that were available, were written very much from an Anglo-American perspective. And what we wanted to do is to produce teaching material that reflected a more European perspective. That's why then we try to find partners who were in the same situation. So European universities, continental European universities, who also established English language history education on a bachelor level. And the idea was that together we would create our own teaching material. This is what we got the grant for the project that ran for 3 years with a budget of around 430,000 euros. And it was 7 universities and one societal partner, the Euroclear, which is the European agency, European network for history educators. They have a lot of experience in these kind of projects, so I thought it was a good idea to bring them on board. And I will share my screen now to show you the website of the project. So I think that will give you a good overview. I hope you can all see my my screen.
Yes, we can see the screen. Yeah.
Okay, great. And can you also see me scrolling up and down?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, great. So this is the project website, and it gives all the background and explanation if you're interested in having a look. But what I want to show you is basically the context in which the major open access output of this project is located in. And then in the next step, I'll talk about this open access textbook in more detail. So this project, so the TEH21, so Teaching European History in the 21st Century, that was the name of the project. What we set out to do was to create this teaching material. One of them, the biggest, most important one, was an open access textbook that you could use for bachelor level education. But we also wanted to use the opportunities of digital education and to get away a little bit from just the traditional textbook. So we also produced a collection of online lectures where some of the authors who wrote the chapters in textbooks basically gave a brief overview of what they've written in an online lecture. As historians, of course, we are really, really important to work with primary sources. So together with the Euroclear, we created a platform of selected primary sources in translation that people then could use to basically create, teachers could use to create their own lessons. Students would then use the textbook and apply it to specific primary sources. And then as a fourth output was basically a guide how to use these different formats in practice in class. So like I said, the most important output was the open access textbook. This is how it looked like. This is what we published. And this is quite a big endeavor. So we had, I think, in total around 150 authors working this textbook, because the idea was that every chapter, sub-chapter, would be produced by an international team of authors. That you basically had ideally 7 authors, or 5 to 7 authors from these partners working together on one chapter, giving different perspectives on the same part of European history. That's why we called it a multi-perspective history of modern Europe. If I scroll down, you can see the different subchapters. So, for example, we had a subchapter about ideas of Europe, and then people from Budapest, Lille, Utrecht, and Sheffield would get together and write kind of European history of ideas of Europe, say things about borders, migration, and so on. That was the idea, and we actually managed to put this together. It's around 1,000 pages, covering the time from 1500 to around 2000. And yeah, to bring all these authors together was actually quite a feat. And if you're interested, I can also talk more about this in the Q&A. I want to just show you the textbook in more detail on the website of the publisher. Could you see me switching the tab now, Cynthia?
No, we still see the previous website webpage.
Then let me try to. Can you see this one now?
Yes, now we see.
Okay. So this is the website of Open Book Publishers, the publisher that we actually work with to publish this. And this was rather random to the choice of publisher, and I can also talk about this in more detail if you're interested. But of course, after we got the project money, as Graham said, we had to publish all these things open access. And OVP, I just basically Googled, open source publishers. OVP had a good reputation, and we went with them. And I can talk about this experience also in more detail, but just to summarize, it was very, very positive. It was a very great experience to work with them. And basically, what you can do is you can order from their website the hard copy of this book. But you can also download it for free in PDF, but you can also read it online. And the idea is basically that the book can actually be taken apart in different, all the chapters don't necessarily have to be read in sequence. So for example, if you would want to create a course about the history of early modern Europe, you could just take all the sections about early modern Europe, and just leave out, the ones about modern and contemporary European history. And that you can, of course, do online, right? You just tell the students, read this chapter, this chapter, this chapter. And OBP was really helpful in putting this actually into practice, the vision that we had in this kind of more flexible format. And as you can see, OBP also offers a kind of real-time counter of the downloads and the use of the book. And we are now by around over 30,000 Google Book views, for example. And what is really handy is when you look at the full report, you can see how many people downloaded and read this. And the nicest thing, I think, is that you can actually look at where the people who downloaded books actually are located. You can see that most of the people are in the US, but there are also 1,715 people in China who downloaded our open access book. And also there are 4 people in Libya, for example. That is quite nice. And I think we will talk about this later, what is the added value. And I think that is one, I think for us was the most satisfying thing about our project, is that actually, usually as an academic historian, not that many people read your work, but now somehow 4 people in Libya are reading what you've written, which is, I think, quite a nice thing. So this is just kind of a short introduction and overview of the project and of the open access publication in the context of this project. But I'm really happy to talk more about the experiences of actually bringing this to fruition, and what maybe also some obstacles for it. Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is an incredible feat, and I think it just goes to show what a broad appeal. I mean, the topic, it has, and it's great to see the download figures from all corners of the earth, I think. So thank you very much, and look forward to hearing more in the discussion shortly. But Imre, please, we'd like to hear from you now.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the invite. Let me share my screen quickly. Yeah. So thanks for the introduction as well earlier. So as Silke already mentioned, I'm based in Brussels at the Free University of Brussels at the Mobilise research group. And our aim is to accelerate the transition to a more sustainable and inclusive mobility and logistics system, focusing on urban mobility and sustainable logistics. And we do this by analyzing sustainability and also mobilizing people, developing different tools and methods. So the topic is quite different from history, but I think the overall aim and concept of putting our research out for people to be able to access it free is common in both of the approaches and in our research. And we are proud supporters of responsible research and innovation. So that's why we are trying to include actually in all of our projects some sort of an open access publication. That could be, of course, open access papers, but in two cases we managed to actually publish a whole book. And so one of the examples that I brought today was the outcome of a Horizon 2020 project that we coordinated on inclusive digital mobility solutions. In this project, which was running between 2020 and 2022, we looked at the inclusivity of digital mobility solutions, which includes, for example, car sharing, bike sharing, Uber or digital ticketing. And the aim was to avoid digital exclusion, so people wouldn't be excluded from using these systems because they don't have the latest mobile phone or they don't have the skills to use these applications. And one of the key outputs of the project was a book which was published in a series of Springer lecture notes on mobility. And also, in a way, it was already a series in a number of books on user-centric transport, which we already started to actually produce in a previous Horizon Europe project. So this one was already the third volume, making digital mobility inclusive and accessible. And maybe one interesting aspect of this book is that this was not only produced by the participants and project partners of the InDemo project itself, but we actually collaborated with two other sort of sister projects, which were all funded under the same funding call. Called Dignity and TRIPS. They were all doing research from different perspectives on inclusive mobility. So the concept of the book was to invite actually chapters from all three projects to introduce some key results, but we also invited externals, both researchers and also other stakeholders like practitioners and NGOs to contribute to this book. And I think that that's another nice thing about these open access books is that they are not necessarily only fundamental or hard science, but also you can combine fundamental theoretical research with practical applications and also presenting empirical results. In our case, in this book, for example, we had authors from the Transport Authority of the Barcelona Metropolitan Region and also from the European Passenger Federation, which is an NGO. And the book, well, on the website where you can access the book, you can find the link here, and I think it's also posted in the chat. You can see that we have had 58,000 accesses of the book, 14 citations, and also we can see that it's been referenced or referred to not only in academic publications, but also in policy documents. The other open access book where I acted as an editor is a recent one. This is also an output of a Horizon Europe funded project, which is called SSH Center, Social Sciences and Humanities for Climate, Energy and Transport Research Excellence. This project actually just finished in February 2026. And this book was published in 2024. And this was also one of the key deliverables of the project itself. This project aimed to bring together social science and humanities researchers with STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics researchers, to do research together to combat climate change. And one of the approaches actually of the project was to form small research teams with SSH and STEM researchers to do research together and then publish the research results in this open access book. But not only the results, but also policy recommendations to the European Commission and also national and regional authorities. So one of the particularities of this book is that it's not just a collection of papers on the same topic, but also basically it was a collaborative effort for each chapter of a team of 2 SSH and 2 STEM researchers. And they co-created 9 chapters. Each chapter has a set of policy recommendations. So this was also an experiment, how SSH and STEM researchers can work together collaboratively and produce a policy-related output. So also the book is not really to be read as from the beginning until the end. We also tried to make the chapters short and focused, so there is no literature review, there are no long methodological explanations, but the focus is really to come up with policy recommendations that are supported by empirical data. And by the way, the data sets and appendices have been published on Zenodo from this book. So these are the 2 examples that I wanted to show you. We have had a very positive experience actually with the publication of both groups. I suppose we will talk about the challenges as well of publishing open access, but we find it as a great way to access not only the academic audience, but also to broaden our reach to more societal actors and other stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That also seems like a huge feat to coordinate all those groups between the SSH and STEM, and also among the different projects for the first book. But really interesting, both really interesting funding projects. So we're now entering the structured discussion phase of the agenda, which Graham is going to lead, and so we'll hear in a bit more detail from Jochen and Imre about their experiences.
Yeah, thanks very much, Silke. And also, can I say to people, if you've got any questions that you would like to put to any of our speakers, please pop them in the chat. And I think, Silke, you're facilitating that bit. But yeah, please pop them in the chat as you think of them. But before we get into that, and maybe to warm you up, we've got a bit of a structured discussion. Just got a few questions. We'll spend about 10 minutes looking at this, and we will come on to the challenges as well. But first of all, I mean, you've both told us a lot about the values already, which has been fantastic. So, but I wonder whether you could go into a bit more detail. Not just, I think we probably covered the value of going OA, but maybe a bit more on the societal impact, or how you think it's maybe you've reached areas that you might not have thought. Jochen, I know you mentioned the usage. So maybe just a bit more detail about how that's helped sort of maybe reach areas that you wouldn't necessarily have thought when you started putting the book together. Please, one of you are welcome to jump in.
I can just briefly mention again the fact that it's been the OA book has been downloaded over 30,000 times in the last 3 years in all over the world, and that is a really nice feeling actually, that your work is actually used all around the world. Yeah, I would really like to know how much use it is to people, outside of the Western university context that this was produced in. But yeah, but that's we only know that they download it. We don't know what they do with it, which is a bit of a shame. But that I think is something also very easy to sell in a way to I don't know, my head of department, for example, right? What has your work? What's the use of your work? What have you done in the last year? And I could say, well, we produce this textbook, and we can really show that this has gone far beyond, the usual academic audience. This is really, the keyword impact, which is becoming more and more important, at least in the Netherlands, I think also in the UK and the US, is the impact of your work specifically for humanities researches, where you can really directly show this has made an impact, right? It has been downloaded, and I guess that's a good sign that it's also being used. And that is something that is very hard to show with more traditional.
Thanks very much. Imre, have you got anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I guess as Johan said, the challenge is to find out what happens with the knowledge, because in academia we kind of know from the citations how the sources or the papers are used. We know less about non-academic users. What I can see actually about the use of the books, that in the altmetric statistics, we can say that one of the books was referred by 3 Wikipedia pages. It was included in a blog as well, and also a Blue Sky user referred to it. So at least we have traces of information how it was referred to by non-academic users. But I think that it's more important that the principle is there, that anyone can just access it, and of course how they use it, it's really up to them.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. I wonder if we can move on to some of the challenges, because we've been very positive, but we don't want to be completely biased throughout this. I wonder whether you could let us know, I guess, any of the challenges, the difficulties that you had with making your work open access, and also Imre as well. I suppose a question for you is: has it got easier? Has the more you've done, has that actually got easier? So please, either one first.
And maybe one challenge that I could mention is the funding. So it's one thing that you put the cost of the book in the project application. It's included in the budget. Once the project starts, you really have to start very early working on the book, because the writing itself and the publication process takes quite a long time. And at least in Horizon Europe, you can only spend the money before the end of the project. So even if the book is published after the end of the project, you have to pay the bills before. So that was a challenge actually in the book on user-centric transport, because that was only a 3-year project, and the book was published actually in the year after the project already finished. So we had to sort of pre-finance or pay actually before the end of the last year the publisher, with the promise that eventually it will be published. But it did work out. It was a bit easier in the SSH Center project, which was a 4-year project. So we started already in the first year. And also there it was easier because in the different work package, there was a whole work package that aimed to create this book. So there was already a very clear pathway to the publication. But of course, it was also stressful because there was the deadline, and there might be always delays in the publication process.
Thank you. And I know it's not just an issue for Horizon Europe. I know it's an issue with other funder. other funders as well about the length that it can take, and I guess also, and I don't want to answer this question that I've just asked you and Jochen hasn't spoken, but also if you're mixing potentially a number of different projects as well, because often I guess, and in fact you've mentioned this, the book is sometimes more, a sum of more than one project. But Jochen, can I ask you to come in on this?
Yeah, my the production process and the experience with it was actually very positive, and OPP was also very flexible, and it was really a great experience in that respect. I guess the only obstacle is that open access publications still seem to not be taken as seriously in the academic context. Basically, there wasn't any journals who reviewed the book. We submitted it to some prizes of teaching material and educational publications, but yeah, it seems basically still it's a bit harder to get the recognition beyond the fact that it's really easy for people to download and read and use it, but to actually being taken seriously in the academic community, it seems that I think that still is something that hasn't really happened yet. Maybe it's just a question of time when more people actually have to publish open access because they're funded by an EU project. But that for me seems a bit like an obstacle, especially when you're dependent on that metric, right? That how many reviews, how many reviewers said something about it, about the book, which is still very important in academic publishing. But yeah, that to me seems an obstacle. The only real obstacle that I can think of. Otherwise, I would just publish everything in open access now, even if I wouldn't have to. But yeah, that's still something that seems.
Yeah, thanks for that, and it's well noted as well. I mean, we've had a lot of sessions on that have covered this over the years, but I think something that we, as in, I guess, the community, if I can speak for the whole community, is that it's not just about pushing open access; it's the need for cultural change, and whether that cultural change is within the university system, within funders or publishers or whatever. And I know that within the commission now, some other projects that we're involved in are increasingly linking research assessment reform with open access, and almost sort of saying, well, one may not be able to happen without the other to a certain extent because of that constant push. And also constant push for, I guess, for journals, for English language research. Whereas, of course, one of the things I probably should have said, if anybody's playing open access books bingo out there, multiculturalism and bibliodiversity are two very important things here. And Jochen, you'd mentioned the language thing as well, and the need to get out to in other languages and preserve research in other languages. I've got one eye on the time, but I wondered whether either of you had any last comments to make. We haven't had anything in the chat yet, so you've got until our two speakers finish to pop something into the chat. But I wondered, Jochen, Imre, any final comments? Anything that you haven't said that you'd like to add?
Maybe related to what you just said about sort of institutional and academic reforms. I think our university is quite exemplary in this case, because one of our KPIs as a research group is how many papers actually we publish open access, including journal and book papers. And I think we made a promise in one of our last planning to publish at least half of our papers open access. But during the recent evaluation, it turned out that I think it was closer to 70% already.
No, that's excellent. Jochen, any final thoughts?
I just generally, for people who haven't had the experience of publishing with an open access publisher, and not just paying a journal, for example, to make it open access, but just to kind of, I think it's called diamond level
Yep.
open access. Basically, it's from the start. It's open access. I would really recommend it because I was only really used to the traditional way of going to a journal with a big publisher. But this is really, very professional. Actually, more professional than a lot of the experience I had with one of those, established publishers. And the knowledge that this is really available to such a broad public, I think it was also really really welcome experience for me. So yeah, I would recommend it to anyone.
Thanks very much. And the reason why some of you might see both myself and Silke smiling there is we hadn't planned that Jochen would say that. Um, but and if we would have done it, it wouldn't have worked. But I suppose that also because I can't see any questions, I'll hand over to you in a second, Silke. But just I guess to say, as a bit, you've given us a bit of free publicity here because I'm also delighted to say that we have a new Horizon Europe project called Aegis OA, or however you want to pronounce Aegis, Aegis, Aegis OA. It's actually looking at expanding Diamond Open Access further across the European research area. And for the first time in these projects around Diamond, it's including books as well. And OAPEN is very pleased to be leading the tasks on books. So yeah, you can tell we didn't plan this because we've got no links ready to send you. But yeah, just to say that that's actually started in March and it will run for 2 years. So we hope to help with that. We hope to yeah, really push forward the Diamond agenda as well on behalf of the Commission. So yeah, thank you for that piece of free publicity because I wasn't going to. I don't think I could have possibly got that in otherwise. So Silke, can I hand over to you and maybe we wrap up a couple of minutes early and give people some time back?
Yeah, I think that's the perfect end to the webinar. And thank you for Jochen, Carlin, Imre for your time and for sharing your experiences. Really valuable. I've really enjoyed hearing about your projects as well. And look forward to seeing how the Zenodo repository develops too.
Yeah.
And we will share the recording, the slides, the links after this through the OABN mailing list on the website and probably on OAPEN as well. So just keep an eye out for that. And yeah, thank you for your participation. I'll stop the recording now.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks all, and thanks to all our delegates as well.